13th edition. Good thing. Glad you're here. Would you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Sullivan.
Would you bow with me, please? Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful weather we've enjoyed today, Father. And Father, we thank you for the blessing of this great city that we serve. Father, we thank you for the council and their willingness to sacrifice and serve in this capacity. Father, we just ask your blessing be upon their decisions tonight, and that their decisions be with godly wisdom and discernment, and that they be for the good of the whole. Thank you for this great state and this nation, the freedoms we enjoy, and those who are willing to guard and guarantee them. Protect them and guide them as well while they're away from their families. And we just ask all of this in your Son, Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Oh.
Where's
our flag? Here's a flag.
Where is our flag?
I guess they're still at Eastside Church. There we go.
And whose job was that?
Tracy's supposed to bring them back.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Mark.
That's our motto, adapt, overcome. That's the way we do things in Midwest City. Okay, we do have a couple of proclamations, and it's going to be the Paul Streets and Carey show. So,
Where's Carrie's boat? Yeah, she's got about one. I see.
that's a Garber boat.
It's got my initials on it too. You just
Awesome.
can't see
They
it.
were at the OML conference.
Okay. I said
It's shorter this year.
It is.
That's
I'm impressed. Whereas the United States generates more than 258 million tons of municipal solid waste each year. We collect about 39,000 tons. Is that correct?
I don't have that number, I'm sorry.
That's shooting from the hip.
Good
I believe,
answer.
I believe that was a part of your speech that
That's
you
part of my
memorized.
speech.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
exactly
for
right.
the
Yeah,
last 10
yep,
years.
yep.
So we contribute to that quite a bit. Whereas each year recycling keeps approximately 89 million tons of material out of landfills and gives it useful second life. Whereas the celebration of America's Recycling Day focuses on the nation on attention on the importance of recycling in our communities. Whereas participating in America Recycles Day 2025 is one way citizens can raise awareness of the excellent recycling opportunities available to Midwest City residents and the benefits of reducing waste by reusing, recycling, and buying recycled content materials. Therefore, I, Matt Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim November 15th is America Recycles Day, and ask that y'all put it in the proper bin. Is that
Good
it?
job.
That's on,
Yeah,
on the
that's
fly.
on, that's
I
on
did that.
point. That's
Yeah,
on point.
I did that all by myself. You know, if you can't have fun doing this, why do it? Here's another one.
I'll work on that one. We'll narrow that
I
one
want
down.
to remind you,
No,
we will have super recyclers. We're going to do super recyclers again this next year. If you guys have ever, who in here has ever participated in super recyclers?
It's
Yeah, quite a
really-
few. It is an incredible experience. You've not had the opportunity to walk the streets in Midwest City and actually give gift cards to customers along the way, those that have done a good job with the recycling. I want to point out one in the front row over here, who over in the corner, Mr. Vaughn Sullivan was a super recycler. He had learned the importance of putting the right things in the blue container, and we are grateful to celebrate that. So I would encourage all of you, if you have an opportunity in the future, to participate in that process, to be able to celebrate. And I want to give Carrie a lot of credit. She helped build that program into what it is today. So thank you very much.
And I've yet to get a gift card. I'm just saying.
Railroad is kind of an unusual play. I don't know.
It
It's not on the
is.
map, yeah.
Whereas the National Municipal Stormwater Alliance has established November 17th as National Stormwater Day to commemorate the establishment of the National Municipal Separate Stormwater System program on November 16th, 1990. And whereas a major source of pollutants in Oklahoma's waterways is polluted urban and suburban stormwater runoff that flows directly into our rivers, lakes, and streams untreated. And whereas the goal of the MS4 program is to reduce the discharge of polluted stormwater runoff through the implementation of stormwater control measures, thus preventing damage to vital ecosystems, contamination of drinking water resources, and disruption of recreational activity. Whereas the City of Midwest City has a successful MS4 program since 2005, and whereas National Stormwater Day not only recognizes the establishment of the MS4 program, but also celebrates and highlights many efforts around the country to increase the awareness of stormwater, including those here in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Therefore, I, Matthew Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim November 17th as National Stormwater Day and ask that you all not pollute our water. I'll give you this one.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Absolute party pick.
You need one of these?
We need both of them.
There you go.
Like we like each other.
I did, baby. All right.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right. Now we move into community-related announcements. The floor is yours, Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several announcements this evening for the citizens, starting with just a reminder on November 18th, which is next Tuesday, we'll have a special election to increase the hotel motel tax from 5% to 9.25%. This money does not impact, or this tax does not impact our citizens. Citizens are exempt that live in Midwest City. 45%, and then it's the same as Oklahoma City's hotel motel tax. The split would be 45% for economic development, 55% for park improvements and recreational activities in our community. It's estimated that total proceeds would be about $1.2 million, or about $600,000 of new money. So please get out and vote. We had last weekend on Friday and Saturday, we had a food drive through Sam's. We had our citizens donated 36 pallets of food, which ties a record for Midwest City. And doing the food drive, we're targeting about 130 families to help this year, which is would be the largest number we've ever had submitted. And there was about $1,200 in just cash that'll help supplement with meat and various things to put with all the different baskets of the families that we are going to provide over Thanksgiving for dinners. So good job to the neighborhood services, the community action, and neighborhood initiative. So great job. We should give them a hand. Thank you all that worked that. And the mayor spent a bunch of time out there too, so appreciate that, Mayor. All city offices will be closed on November 27th and 28th, which is the Thanksgiving holiday. So for recycling and trash, if we will not be picking up on Thursday, we will be Friday as normal. So if your trash is picked up on Thursday, put your trash and recycling out for pickup on the preceding Wednesday. So Wednesday before the Thursday, we'll be picking up a day early. Did I get that right, Paul? Okay. Household hazardous waste collection facility will be closed on Wednesday, November 19th, and Friday, November 28th. Does that mean it's open on Thanksgiving Day? The compost will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, the 27th through the 29th. That doesn't sound right, but are we open?
Not on Thanksgiving, so it's closed.
Okay, so this is, all right. So we'll be closed Wednesday.
On Thursdays anyway, typically it's just Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay,
Thursday they're closed because it's Thanksgiving and they wouldn't be open.
all right. So they'll be closed Wednesday and Friday. Holiday festivities kickoff for Light the City is December 1st, which I believe is a Monday. Is that right, Josh? From 5:30 to 8. So we light Regional Park for the first time, and we open it up for Walk the Lights, which is an amazing activity to get to walk all the way through the lights. It's your only chance to walk the lights through the Christmas season. There'll be crafts, hot chocolates, and pictures with Santa there as well. And then on December 2nd through December 28th, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. each night, holiday lights will be open to drive through. And the activity I think we charge $5 to walk through. Is that right? $5. But during the regular holiday lights, there's no fee. People can donate at the end if they wish. Comprehensive Plan's having another community open house on November 18th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the community center. So if you're interested in all the updates on what's going on with updating the comprehensive plan, please come to that. And then finally, on January 19th at 7:30 a.m., did you hear that, Rita? 7:30 in the morning. Rita really likes to get up early. There'll be a Martin Luther King prayer breakfast will be our annual. It'll be our 29th annual Martin Luther King prayer breakfast at the Reed Center. The theme this year is Where Do We Go From Here? The keynote speaker will be Dr. Ruth Ray Jackson, who is the president of Langston University. Tickets are $30 each or $300 for a table of 8, and they can be bought through the Eventbrite connected through the website. If you have any questions, contact Don Meisch, our city attorney, at 739-1203. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into our consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the council members, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any council member requests to discuss an item, or if there's not unanimous consent, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion.
Mayor, I ask that item number 1 be pulled for discussion. There's a Scrivener error.
Okay. Is that a form of motion?
I have to. So, Mayor, if I could motion to pull item number 1, 4, and 6 for discussion and move to approve the remaining consent items.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 1, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration, possible action to approve the meeting minutes for October 28th, 2025.
There's a item on there that was actually involved my reelection to vice mayor. It's not correct on how the voting went. It has on there that Susan Eads voted. She's no longer on the council. It has that I voted, but I can't. Mine should have been abstention. It has that Sarah voted. She wasn't present. So that needs to read, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, is that it reads as Rick Favors made the motion, Mark Thompson seconded it. In the voting, in the positive was Maxwell, Thompson, Favors, and Dukes, and mine was an abstention.
Correct.
So I make a motion that that be approved
As amended.
as amended.
Okay, thank you.
I have a second? Yes. I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The record will be amended. Item number 4.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action approving the appointments to the Police Community Advisory Board. Chief Whipley's here.
Well, I think that's number 6. I think we were going to go
Which
to
one?
4.
Oh, you wanted 4, not 6?
4 and 6.
Four and
Oh, 4
six.
and 6. Okay, let's go to 4. Discussion, consideration, and possible action approving accepting a grant award from the State of Oklahoma by and through the District Attorney's Council in the amount of $347,632 to continue the Midwest City Police Department's Crisis Intervention and Response Team Program, and authorizing the mayor, city manager, and/or his designee to enter into the necessary contracts and documents to implement all aspects of the grant. Chief. And this is an award, this is money coming in. Okay.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I brought the subject matter expert, Lieutenant Zuniga, tonight to answer any questions about the program if you have any.
I believe this is the second year we're participating in this program. I wanted to pull this item because when our police department is ahead of concerning issues happening across the nation and we're on the right side of things, I think we need to recognize it and acknowledge it and make sure that we take the opportunity to educate our residents about programs that exist within our community. And I was also really excited to hear, and again, I want to thank you, Chief, for your leadership. I know you and I had previous conversations prior to this program. Myself and the city manager had conversations around mental health and how we can enhance educated approaches towards those struggling within our community. I'm also interested to see what your feedback is after a year of this program being accessible in our city, as far as what your perspective on that is.
Lieutenant Zuniga.
Yes.
It's been well received, well received. We've experienced a 1% increase in total calls for service. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing our job. It just means that we're getting the word out about our program, and citizens are calling us more often because they feel more comfortable and they have knowledge of the available resources. So.
And do you feel like the program has been helpful to your officers as well in their response to these types of calls?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Again, just want to thank you guys, and I don't know if you want to just take a few minutes to educate those who may have not read the agenda item about what the program aims to achieve.
So the program helps us establish a partnership with the Divergence Center and the Oklahoma County Co-op. The main goals and objectives, the main objective is to reduce repetitive incarceration of people with mental health illness, which is what it does. It has done great.
And to identify those in need of care and connect them to a care provider.
Yes.
So thank you guys again for that, and I don't know if anyone else has any questions. And I will probably be, Chief, reaching out to the city manager and asking if we could put an agenda item for, I think, the Blue Ribbon Project. Is that what it's called?
The Blue Envelope
Yes, the
Project?
Blue
Yes,
Envelope.
yes.
Okay, because I think that's a really important initiative that you guys have also invested in, so hopefully we can learn about that. Thank you so much, sir.
Do that on a further information item, Chief.
Okay.
Awesome.
And just to maybe expand just a little bit about what Jeremy was talking about, the goal, and we've actually have a SSM mental health provider that rides out with them now every day. So they have another level of care that can be delivered to our citizens when they meet a mental health crisis that maybe we can't take action on because of the law, but then she can because of her training and experience, which has been a great partnership.
And I know some of our police officers, we have 3 of them on this council, who can probably confirm this can be a life-saving program that really redirects
I
a
know
crisis.
I was a CIT, and weren't you, Rick? Yes, sir. So we've both been through the program and know the value of it, and helps us recognize mental health issues and not, like Lieutenant said, keep down the repetitive incarcerations or mercy bookings, if you want to call it that, and get them in the proper help that they need. I'm glad to see that the program's expanded. That's good to know that SSM's riding out with us. So,
With
any
that,
further questions?
move to approve.
Had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Item number 6, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving appointments to the Police Community Action Advisory Board.
Again, I only pulled this as a matter of education to those who may just watch the council meetings and not read the agenda. I know this program has been in place for many years in a proactive effort, not as a result of a crisis happening.
Correct.
And I do recall Midwest City being one of the first municipalities to actually work with the Department of Justice's Community Relations Office to make sure we established this board. And if you just want to elaborate on any information you'd like to put out there.
Sure, sure. And this, this board brings together a group of civilians to review police-related incidents. Whenever we have a major event, we're able to share information that we wouldn't be able to share the rest of the public through non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements, so that they can kind of, we can present that to them, and then they can give us feedback on how we did, if they have recommendations of some things we can do different. But it's a way to be more transparent with our community. We also go over end-of-year stats. For example, one of the stats that's always stuck out with me is last year we had about 75,000 calls for service, and we had about 35 incidents of use of force, which is 0.001 whatever, which I think is amazing, and it's a testament to our training, and we're able to let the citizens read all of our use of force reports so they can see exactly what happened and how we use force and things like that. We go over pursuits and all of our major statistical data.
Thank you for that. And I know that there is a national perception that there is no accountability for officers, but I think here in the city of Midwest City, we have a prime example of how our community and police department work together hand in hand, and how there's mutual accountability, both in the community, but as well as in our law enforcement officers. So I, again, thank you guys for creating that layer of transparency and accountability.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also want to thank Mr. Marcus Hayes from Ward 5, who was very interested in serving on this board. And I think his interest was driven by not incidents necessarily in Midwest City, but just policing incidents, but also his collaborative efforts on some community events that required the police department. And so I think it'll be awesome to see and get his feedback.
Yes.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get someone on some of those boards that you have.
Okay.
I think that you and I need, please, have a meeting to talk about
Sure.
how I can get some representation on that.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay.
Just one final thing I'd like to say is, this program goes back to Brandon Claib's days, and I spoke at a national conference, a public risk insurance managers conference called PRIMA, when this first started, and it was very controversial. And I was pretty much, I don't know what's a nice way of saying this, but treated not very well by the audience, who thought we were crazy for doing this. And now look at us today. We set a standard a long time ago, and it just shows how progressive of a department we've had in the leading edge. And now, you know, the more progressive departments in the United States have this. The Department of Justice pushes this program, and it's something we've done for a long time. So, thank you.
And I've had a lot of excellent feedback from the members on the board and all that.
And so with that, I want to thank you for your leadership, the former police chief, Brandon Claibs, and I would argue former police chief Porter as
Yes.
well, along with yourself, because it takes that type of leadership, not just to establish these types of boards, but also to make sure that they have longevity. So thank you all. Move to approve unless there's any questions.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention, motion carries. We now move into our discussion items of our agenda, and this is, number one is a public hearing. Mr. Lyon.
PC 2220, public hearing, discussion, consideration, possible action to consider approval of the final plat of Cypress Village for the property located 1120 South Post Road and 10100 Southeast 10th, Midwest City, Oklahoma. Mr. Summers.
Thank you. This is an item that the City Council approved several months ago. It's the final plat for the Cypress Village development. At that time, there were conditions that exist within our subdivision regulations that the applicant is expected to complete before staff will release the plat back to the applicant for recording with Oklahoma County. So specifically, the conditions that we were waiting on with this application was the thoroughfare screening along both South Post Road and Southeast 10th Street. The applicant has expressed that there was an issue with their manufacturer. They've received some of the wall panels, but not all of them at the time that they had made this request that this be brought back to City Council for relief from that requirement. I will say I was out there earlier today. Almost all of the wall panels are installed. They would still have to comply with the landscaping requirement that would be a part of that thoroughfare screening. And the applicant expressed to us, and it's in the memo that I provided, that they expect that all the landscaping and screening should be done by mid-December.
So they've completed everything that we asked of them, and it looked like they were pretty close to completing today.
They're pretty close to completing. Once they get the last few wall panels in, there's some trees and things they'll have to plant. They wanted to get the wall panels in before they plant trees so they don't disturb the landscaping.
So it would be your recommendation to go ahead and approve this request?
Yes, and I mean, and I should be clear that, you know, as part of this request, the applicant did state that they would be willing to allow us to withhold any certificates of occupancy that, you know, just sort of to make sure that the landscaping and everything is in place. So, and, you know, we're willing to do that. We feel like the applicant has shown good faith in, you know, completing the parts of the wall construction that they can at this time, and we have faith that they'll follow through.
I mean, somebody's come to us ahead of time instead of coming in here begging for help after they've done something they shouldn't have done?
I would say that's most of them. Yeah, I will say though, in this case, you know, they did show us that they had actually ordered the panels back in July.
We've seen a lot that haven't done that though.
Correct.
Well, based on what you said and on your memo, I guess a public hearing won't make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring forth council concerning this agenda item? Hearing or seeing none, Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve with the understanding, according to Mr. Summers, that certificates of occupancy for the residential units will be withheld until they complete the requirements set forth.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Summers. Thank you, Mr. Box, for being here. Thank you. Item number 2, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, of possible action to approve an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 28, Offenses, Miscellaneous, Article 5, Offenses Against Public Peace, adopting 2886.2, interfering with a first responder engaged in law performance of duties, and amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, and setting a penalty in violation of the code. Ms. Floyd.
Thank you. This was a request by PD to include this. This is based on a new statute passed by the Oklahoma state statutes. It's basically the same wording and then adding a penalty to conform to municipal fines and costs and jail.
Any questions?
I do. The law or the paperwork that I saw is kind of vague in what it means by interfering. And you notice that, well, you know, currently there's so much going on the internet and so forth with police being interfered with doing their duty, or ICE is being interfered with doing their duties. So it's taking pictures, which is legal, is not interfering.
I wouldn't believe so. And there is not, I did not notice a definition of interference, but this particular ordinance, as does a statute, impeding, which to me
Impeding,
means you
okay.
have to be inserting yourself into the situation, keeping them from the ability to do their job. Taking photos would not meet that definition.
Now, impeding, that's interpretation of the courts, like you would be making that determination, or would the police officer on the scene be making that determination?
They would be initially making that determination. It would come to me for review to pass on, but that would be officer discretion at the time, yes.
Okay. And we have not had any law that stops people from actually fighting with the police or interfering with
We
them?
do. We have an assault on an officer ordinance. We also have a regular, this would come after the regular resisting interfering with law enforcement. This just added first responders separately.
So we're including firemen and
Yes.
and IMSA and so forth?
Yes, it includes peace officer, correctional or probation and parole officer, an emergency medical technician or emergency medical care provider. And I know I have received many calls previously from EMS about what their options were, and this meets when they're interfered with, what can happen, because we didn't have anything prior.
Okay.
I think the
Thank you.
benefit of, sorry.
You're fine.
I think the benefit of doing this on a municipal level is it stays here in the city. We're not
Correct.
shipping it downtown to be dealt with at the county level. So
Correct.
if this happens in Midwest City, we have the ability to take care of it here in Midwest City in our courts instead of the county, correct?
That's correct. We do have that ability. But if the officer determined it was significant enough, it could still go to state.
Correct.
I think it's very timely. You know, I can't even imagine you want to interfere with a fireman putting out a fire, but
Everybody likes firemen.
until they interfere with it. Yeah. They are heroes.
Yes, I know.
I do want to, just as a matter of clarity, I actually, I am one of those people who likes to film law enforcement officers when there is an incident that may take place in front of me. I do believe it's a protected right to be able to video, photograph
I
in
would
public
agree with you.
spaces. Sheriff Johnson, someone that I have a lot of respect for, who's always been a man of integrity and very honest, even if we have disagreements. I heard him explain this, that it does not criminalize the act of videography or photography. As a matter of fact, I think he went on to say that the law would require the officer to give you an order to step back. And if it is when you fail to comply with that order, that an arrest would be made. It's not that officers are just going to walk around town and arrest you if they feel like there's a perception of impeding, but rather if you fail to comply with an order that's given to you.
Correct. Sub B indicates shall be unlawful after receiving a verbal warning not to approach from a person he or she knows is a first responder or can reasonably ascertain as a first responder. That is correct.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
I had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 3, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, of possible action of accepting the 2025 Water Master Plan. We'll start with Mr. Streets and bring up
Street.
Bryce, and
Good
they all
evening.
seem to have the same ties on for some reason. I don't know why.
They got the memo.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager. This is the end of a very long process to develop a better way to plan and budget for our community to help preserve one of the most basic and important pieces of life, and that is safe drinking water, the ability to flush your toilets. This is a really important thing for all of us to consider. It's been a long time coming. It's taken us a while to get here, but I can't think of a better way to spend ARPA money. Once again, I want to thank Carrie for her efforts to secure that funding to help us get this paid for. In the end, we had a wonderful partner through this process, Garver Engineering, who actually helped us back in 2012 develop a plan associated with pressure planes in the city that helped us make some decisions about how we would manage certain areas of the community where we needed to make sure that we amended pressures or dealt with issues that we might have. And we were again able to call on them to come back and lean on that wonderful relationship, specifically Bryce Callies, who is a Midwest City resident, and Michael Nguyen, who's also back there, along with a couple of Cole Niblett and Mary Elizabeth Mock, some people that we've had long-standing relationships with and have been with us through this process along the way. Lastly, I want to thank Carrie. Carrie was a part of this from the very beginning, obviously not only able to sore thumb the reports and the plans, but also to sit through a number of meetings to get the final product that you're going to see tonight. But I also need to thank a couple of very important people that happen to be in the audience tonight. In the audience tonight, we have some of the hardest working folks that never get recognized. Justin Madison, who's the line maintenance supervisor, and then one of his right-hand persons, Tony couldn't be here, but Forrest Kiner, who's son of somebody that works in customer service, is here tonight to help support this effort. But Mark Roberts was also the chief operator at the water plant, and the maintenance folks were all a part of the process to sit down, review the information and the material. I know that it's been challenging, especially with water rate increases recently, but I want you all to understand how important it is to involve all of these people, put them at the table so that the product that we get at the end of the day helps improve the quality of life for every customer that lives in Midwest City. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic, if you will, to Bryce Callies and let him get started with, as I understand it, a very sensitive, with respect to time, a very sensitive presentation. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say, Bryce.
Yes, I've been reminded of the time limits many times today, so we'll get to it. So a little bit of background, which you kind of got a little bit just there. As I told Paul, he was ruining some of the presentation with that introduction, but we're going to go through it, and then we'll go through.
We won't count that against you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're claiming my time. So in 2012, we did that initial review of your distribution system and pressure planes, mostly on the southeastern side that was needing to have higher elevations over there and needed to have a different pressure plane to serve that side with the same level of service as the rest of the community. But that one was mostly focused on distribution. This one focused on all aspects of that water system at the water treatment plant, the booster pump station, and including the distribution system and your wells. So 20-year horizon of growth is what we're planning for in these. It's a pretty typical horizon. If you don't plan for the future, it's going to come faster than you think. So currently, the city of Midwest City has surface rights from Lake Thunderbird that meet that future demand in that 2044 timeline. However, the firm yield, which is basically developed based on if we have extreme drought in surface water supplies, that does fall short of those future demands. With the average groundwater capacity you guys currently have to be able to supply from your groundwater sources, your wells that you currently have online, you are able to meet that future, but just barely, and that's without any sort of redundancy there. So that was one of the main, that was one of the primary recommendations we did have on the distribution and supply side, was to look at increasing that redundancy in the groundwater system.
And when you say that, you mean wells?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Wells. So currently, this is how the system in Midwest City currently operates. You mainly have one big main pressure zone, all serviced from the surface water treatment plant, but you also have the Felix Place booster pump station, which takes groundwater and introduces it into that same zone. And you have several towers there for storage on the system to help both operations and emergency supplies. And then again, like we said in the previous study, and currently we're working on a project right now with the city to fix this issue, but that southeastern portion of the city does experience lower pressures overall, leading to a need for that new high-pressure zone, which is that Timber Ridge project is currently ongoing to remediate. And then we've also looked at fire flows throughout the distribution system and identified a few areas that could use either upsizing or looping, basically just to improve those pressures and the fire flow capacities of the areas. Not a whole lot, but I think there's 9 total areas there that were identified. On the on-site storage, made his motion activated too, I don't know. We're adding that Timber Ridge tower there already, but then in the future, we would anticipate you'd want a little bit more capacity there, about 1 million gallons more of elevated storage. That's just so that whenever if a pump goes down or something like that, you have that already pre-pressurized water to help supply the city without losing pressure before you have to go kick a pump on, swap a pump out, that sort of thing. So it gives you a little bit of reaction time within the operations. So an extra 1 million gallons of elevated storage tank capacity was also a recommendation within this study to meet that 2044 goal. So this is kind of just a summary sheet. You guys, I think I'll have this in your packets. So I won't necessarily go through each one of these, but if you did have any questions about any specific one, I'd be happy to take it.
Gallons of elevated storage. How big is it equivalent to one that we already had, the Titan Tower, for instance?
Yeah, how much is Titan Tower? Do you guys know off the top of your head? I think it's 1. I think it's 1. Yeah, I believe Titan Tower is 1 million gallons. Actually, wait, I have it right here. Where am I? I got it on the slides. I just went through it. Yeah, Titan Tower is 1 million gallons. Yeah, I was like, I think it is, but yeah, there it is. So 1 million gallons there. Bomber Tower is 0.4. And then there's the tower that's on site at the water treatment plant there. That's about 100,000 gallons. So that Timber Ridge tower that's going in will be a little bit larger than the Bomber Tower, but then another Titan Tower is what we're recommending. Okay. So this is a long list. Keep in mind that this is 20 years of projects, so not all of this has to be done today or tomorrow. Some of this is already in progress. Those first 2 projects around Timber Ridge and some water main extensions, those are already in progress. Those weren't included in those costs because those have already been budgeted or planned for elsewhere, but we did want to include them for completeness. And then the rest of these projects are those further improvements. Yes. Yes. It's not meters, and and then so groundwater facilities specifically. So again, speaking to that supply redundancy, currently you have 26 active wells owned by Midwest City. So some of those are in various states of age and rehabilitation, et cetera. One of our goals with this plan was to give all of those wells some sort of long-term solution where it's either shut down and close or replace or rehab in place, that sort of thing. So rather than just kind of patching something up that maybe isn't the best well, you kind of just look at that holistically and give some recommendations for each well. And then also we want to add about 2.4 million gallons a day of that groundwater capacity from the groundwater system into available production to help supplement the groundwater supply to be fully redundant with your surface water capacity. So we identified several projects. Again, we kind of spread these out across the years. Some of them more immediate based on the 2025 sanitary survey, doing those earlier. And then others, you can delay based on those being basically a redundancy need that isn't necessarily as pressing maybe as a current compliance issue. So rehabilitation of several wells, but there are new wells also included in here. As you can see, the new wells are expensive, but that is just the cost of doing business anymore.
Did you take in consideration the well over on Felix that we're working on?
In these analyses, what we did was we put in a comparable vertical well costs and their standard flows. Based on the results of that well, that could come down or could be reevaluated at that time and then be added to or subtracted from with that information. So a baseline for all of these costs to be compared to. And then on the water treatment plant side, so just a little bit of history there. Everybody loves history slides. In 1963 was when the water treatment plant was first built. And there's some of those facilities that are still there today, currently active and operated, right? So that's a pretty long time ago that those are built. In 83 was when several other facilities that are still in existence were built. 94, there was some replacement of some systems, and then 2011 was an activated carbon filter gallery that had that improvement added on. So a lot of really old systems out there. Credit to your operators, credit to the city for being able to maintain and operate these systems for that long. This is a pretty wise treatment plant. So there you go. This is we're going to go through some of this in the next slides of our costs, but I did want to point out these are the overview of the water treatment plant. These are the projects that we have on there. Some of these are just demolition of old systems. Some are downsizing and more efficient systems to be replacing the old systems, but there are some kind of overhauls of systems as well that are included in here, as well as I should point out just overall across the site, SCADA system installations, site security improvements, and other smaller projects that are just there for operator efficiencies. Yes.
According to the plan, a typical new water well is going to cost roughly $4 million. That's kind of why are they so expensive? And what's the difference between a well that we will drill for the city to use and a well that I would drill out on my farm?
Oh, absolutely. Good question. So on those well assumptions, so some of those assumptions are written out there in the plan. We assume you're going to need conveyance line to get that from a new well site to the existing system. You're going to need chlorination to go onto that well, something that you might not put on your personal well. I don't have that on my personal well. Those are also much larger sized wells. The bigger piping. Sometimes on those smaller wells, you're only going down a few hundred feet. Typically, the first 200 feet is typically that residential zone that you're drilling into. A lot of times they're completed with PVC pipe. These are much bigger, much heavier systems that require much more expensive materials and go much deeper. Many of these wells are 750 feet deep as compared to a lot of the residential wells only going down about, usually about a max of 200 feet below surface. And then, of course, there's a lot of regulations and sampling and other things that are required by the city to have installed there, including meters and valving and blow-offs and those sorts of things that aren't something that you would have in a typical residential well house. Yeah. But yeah, so the water treatment plant, here's all those guys. And then this is them all listed out verbally or written here. I'm not going to verbally go through them. And the costs associated with them. Some of these are more expensive than others, but yeah, all things that again spread over. These are spread over a 10-year time frame. Of course, that can be stretched out if need be, but mostly due to just age and condition of some of these systems. So then we talk about just the overall capital improvement plan, kind of combining those together, but then there's a few annual kind of operational expenditures that we have in here. So the SCADA maintenance, that's something that every year you're going to have software upgrades you're going to have to do. You're going to have installation, new things. Your whole OS might change. Those are just expected costs that are typical for an annual maintenance expenditure there. Dead end elimination program. Anything that's 8-inch or above, we kind of covered in the previous numbers that we showed. When we're going under that 8-inch, we're talking about smaller, more like subdivision lines, that sort of thing. That's what's included in this number here. And these are, again, annual costs spread across a 20-year time period. And then meter replacement programs and existing pipes, basically just replacing those pipes as they come out, and water treatment plants and service line investigation and replacement, which I think are a little bit more self-explanatory, but of course, ask any questions if you have them. So that is the combination of all the previous numbers I just showed you, the distribution system with those water lines and spread out across those time horizons shown there. And again, these aren't, required timelines. These are things that are just anticipated, and for planning purposes, they can change based on city needs. The groundwater improvements, the water treatment plant improvements, and then that annual cost. Some of those costs, of course, are pretty large, but again, those time increments are not equal either. So that first thing is only 2 years. That last one goes over a 10-year time period. So there are some bigger numbers in that last category down there.
These are $2025.
$2025, yes, sir. So we have not inflated these costs to a specific year. It gets a little confusing when you start shifting years around in actuality when the numbers are all from different years. So, and this is just kind of visually showing those out as we've had it currently planned. Some of these are engineering fees that we have in there, and construction fees, and of course, those annual programs. We split it out just a little bit to show kind of when you might be paying for an engineering service to then construct things, et cetera, and how those costs might be spread out across the years. As you can see, it's also pretty front-loaded, completing those projects early on, so you're getting the benefit of that earlier on, and then you can experience that for the rest of that time period. I always like to say this, I'm not going to harp on it, but these are big numbers. These are not uncommonly big numbers. These are just normal big numbers for this type of work in this day and age. There are a lot of loans and grants available for funding, available to you all, as you guys have already been pursuing. Carrie's been successful in getting several of these. So just wanted to make sure that we didn't just give you a big number and say that there's not money out there for these types of work. There are several agencies that are supplying money specifically for this type of improvements.
I've got a couple of questions.
I did it. Did I do
Just
it?
a couple.
Okay.
So you're still within your time.
Okay, good. I don't want to get thrown out.
Now, our SCADA system, now I've been told, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I worry about, especially with all the internet nonsense that goes on, is not directly connected to the internet, correct?
Correct.
At the water plant, it is not directly connected to the internet.
Okay. I just want to make sure of that. Now, every time I ask this question, I get looked at like I've got three heads. But I worry about this every year, especially we're just coming out of a drought. We're fixing to go back into a drought. We are on the Garber-Wellington, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the threshold? Now, I think we're being a little bit arrogant as a community because we always brag we've never rationed water. What's the threshold and when we need to do that? That's a hard ball. I don't expect an answer, but in our planning, what is the threshold? What would be the threshold?
That's something that we didn't ask them to put together because that is a number that's pretty difficult to come up with because you've got a lot of variables. So for instance, the biggest, what I would say, tipping point for us would be whether or not Lake Thunderbird had an issue with what they could deliver to us to treat and then pump to town. So for instance, if Lake Thunderbird went through a big drought and they had, they dropped lake levels enough that we didn't have adequate water to meet our daily needs, and then groundwater system, which we're obviously, the recommendation is to try to get fully redundant or close to fully redundant with groundwater, you could supplement, which means we wouldn't necessarily have to ration water. However, if we don't do a good job investing in our groundwater, well water system, that means we don't have a way to supplement, which means we would absolutely have to ration. Whether we ration or not is in some ways a little bit of a luxury. We aren't in a situation like other communities. We have done a better job with planning to try to make sure that we have enough supply for our customers. When you say you're responsible, what I would say is it's probably not wise to assume we'll never have to ration water. it's a good idea for us to make decisions, obviously with the support of the city manager's office, and obviously when it comes to how we spend those dollars annually, to make sure that we harden the system against failure so that we could provide water even in extreme situations like a 5 or 10 year or 25-year drought.
To add what the mayor just said, since you're on the topic of groundwater and wells, and this is a loaded question too, something that you weren't asked to look at. Unfortunately, we've started to have fracking in this city. Is that going to hurt our groundwater wells? And just by,
That's a Bryce question with his.
You want me to answer that one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, fracking can impact surface water or groundwater systems, right? We've seen that in other states and other communities. There are regulations put into place to keep them from doing that. But that is a liability taken on by the fracking industry to keep that from happening. So if there was anything like that, that would need to be something that was taken up with the fracker themselves. Typically, though, these systems are very deep underground, separated from the potable water supplies. So it would take a pretty dramatic miss to impact most of the water supplies that we're seeing here compared to where those oil-bearing zones are within our formations.
we have them in our neighborhoods now.
Well, the depths of this, so we're talking about 750 feet. I don't know I can't speak to the actual oil-bearing zones here, but typically they're much deeper than what our drinking water zones are. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, typically they're thousands of feet difference.
And I would say Bryce is actually highly qualified in some ways. He worked for the Oakland Water Resources Board and has some experience with respect to geology and water-bearing formations and versus where they're doing the oil work, the exploration, and obviously trying to get fracking done. The challenge, Pat, is that that's again, one of those issues where you've got a lot of variables that are hard to control. So, let's face it, the fracking itself normally happens at depths that probably don't directly affect our water supply. What happens if you hit an area that's seismically active? What if you have a little bit of an earthquake? What if you have an issue where your zones get either compressed or blinded at the well? Those are things that nobody knows and you can't control, and frankly, there's not enough research out there to justify maybe a plan of action specifically related to fracking as it relates to our water supply. Does that mean that we want to be cautious and obviously keep an eye on it? Absolutely. And I think Garver would be prepared if we wanted to maybe look at some things that would, help protect our system, if that's something obviously wasn't in the scope of this master plan specifically, but if that's something we want to investigate or look at in the future, obviously that's something we could do.
Well, and I think we need to, fracking and injection wells, maybe you need to explain the difference between.
Yeah, so fracking is going to be where you're going underground and you're expanding horizontally out and actually fracturing that formation to loosen up the fluids that you're trying to pull out from the formation or gases. Whereas those injection wells are typically, when you're doing that, you're also getting a lot of water out, usually high salinity water, but you're getting a lot of water out for every part of oil or natural gas that you're pulling from that zone. That water has to go somewhere. And so that's when those injection wells, in the past, historically, that's been what's been pointed to for the seismic activity around north of here and northwest of here, are those actual injection wells located near existing fault lines where those higher pressures were pushed down, because you actually have to push that water into the formations to get rid of it fast enough. And that was what got regulated to say, hey, we're not going to do that anymore, and then we suddenly stopped shaking as much as that 2-year period back in the day, 2 or 3 year period back in the day. So those injection wells were more tied to the getting rid of that excess water was more tied to the actual seismic activity than the actual fracking itself was, even though it was like a byproduct of the fracking.
And it was the injection wells that created the pollution up northwest, killed all the cattle, and high salt content of the water came to the surface for some reason.
I can't speak to that specific one, of course, but that is usually that water, the produced water out of these wells, is high in salinity,
right.
And salt is, of course, the number one reason for a lot of irrigation agricultural failures. But I can't speak to what's going on a certain oil rig site or what's going on with the disposals.
It wouldn't be
but yeah.
fair for me to ask you that. I mean, I've just been reading
We
the
do want to make
reports.
sure, we do want to make sure that we're containing spillage or in that water and that it's being conveyed correctly to the correct zone. But there's injection wells specifically permitted for that underneath the ODEQ's regulations to dispose of that water appropriately in the appropriate zones that are separated significantly from potable water supplies.
Well, to wrap up, my question is, I hope we never get so arrogant, is that we don't have a plan to ration if we get into a situation where we have to. Because that's one quality resource that we cannot afford to screw around with. And so that's why I asked that question. And we've always bragged about that, and just made me scratch my head when other communities are having to ration water, and so I would hope we would have a plan to mitigate that.
That's exactly what this plan is you look on page 8, back to the firm yields, as we know we have a firm yield at Lake Thunderbird, and it's not going to increase unless you dug more lake and created more water surface, and that's not going to happen with the growth of Norman. But, so we have a water well system that's redundant, and it's not as
I get
redundant
that.
as it was because these wells are getting older. But you look out at 2044, and that's, our goal with our growth and projected demand and all that we're doing out east. So 2044, we're getting a 20-year window here to bring up our well system, and that's what he's saying. Our well system needs to become redundant, and to do
Yes.
that, we're going to have to create more wells. We're going to have to drill more wells, or we're going to have to make sure and maintain or upkeep the ones that we have, because some of them aren't even being used. And then we have participated in the horizontal water well project over on Felix, behind Country Estates School over there, and we're still not finished with that, but I mean, it's a well based on one drill that matches, I'm not going to say how many, but yeah, we'll say 4 times, conservatively 4 times the amount of one single well. Well, that's kind of the future technology and the ability not to have to spend as much money, because these wells are expensive, as Councilman Thompson pointed out, and that's an expensive well as well. But
Well, it's also incumbent upon this body and whoever's sitting on this horseshoe and in your chair to
Yeah.
make sure that we're allocating the money to move forward with this master plan, or this becomes a bookend.
yeah, and so that's exactly right. So this is a comprehensive evaluation that we've never done before. It's something that is historic for Midwest City. It's something that we should do as good stewards and fiduciary responsibilities that we all have on this horseshoe. And then to take these recommendations and figure out how we can put them through our budget process. And as Kerry handles our capital improvement program, we program this all in. And so that's why we're doing all these studies, and this is an excellent example, and it will help us as managers of this city, present and future, to establish a capital improvement program that meets the needs of the city for not just today, but for 20 years from now.
I do, on that note, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we had some failures to do what we're doing now with the water, with the sewers. So in this situation, am I correct that we're being proactive?
Correct. That situation with the sewer system was obviously due to the fact that, in my opinion, obviously I cannot speak to the mindset of the decision makers previously, but in our opinion, we believe that they weren't proactive with the decision making associated with sewer. What we've strived to do here is to start down the road of planning for what happens in the future and try to prevent a situation where we are having to ration water or put ourselves in a situation like we did with the sewer moratorium, because that's not good for growth, it's not good for the community, obviously but you don't know what you don't know. So it's important for us to go through this process.
So on that, I just want to applaud staff who have the foresight and the sense of responsibility, right, to move us and the city manager for doing this. And I know I was very critical about the sewer system, so again, in this situation, we're doing it right. And furthermore, Mr. Streets, I recall it was at one of the conferences recently, and I heard you speak, and the amount of respect I gained for you on your expertise in regards to all the knowledge that you have. Because again, people don't realize water is one of the most basic human needs to our survival, and we have got to be cautious with it. And so I heed your advice, but I also, I have one question for you, sir, and one comment. I just read an article, and I think it was in the Oklahoman, and I don't remember the exact title of what commissioner it was, but he was almost working as a whistleblower, talking about some of these oil companies, and not current ones, but throughout the history of the Sooner Land. There is a lot going on underground that has damaged our drinking water, and that what the man was trying to educate the general public about is that there are regulations, but there is a lack of enforcement that could threaten our drinking water. So I guess I have two questions for you. In regards to this comprehensive plan, how often should we, our future folks that sit on this horseshoe, consider doing and reviewing this plan so it's up to date? Should it be every 5 years? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, all the time, constantly. But, you know, yeah, but I mean, every 5 years or anytime you guys are having like significant changes, or you're having like development in a certain area that you know is going to be significant, or changes in land use that are going to be significant, increases in industrial commercial flows that are coming up, like you really have to plan for those things, and not just plan in a specific area, but plan holistically. And hopefully this becomes, I hate saying the cliche, but a living document that isn't just put on the shelf as a bookend, but is something that can be updated as your city plans change as well.
And I would say that we have support. I mean, Tim has asked us, Vaughn has asked us, Ryan, make sure that we're not going to just look at it this time. The goal is to look at this every 5 years. That's an internal, that's not necessarily published any place. But our goal is to make sure that we're looking at this every 5 years and say, okay, what needs to change? Because here's what I can tell you. You noticed all the dollar numbers, and as Tim pointed out specifically and poignantly, those dollar numbers were 2025. That's dollars today. In 5 years, we don't really know. I mean, unfortunately, during COVID, a lot of things spiked. So cost of materials, cost of the construction, all of those things are really difficult for us. We can't manage those.
Yeah.
But what's important for us is that every 5 years, we might evaluate. For instance, if the horizontal wells does exactly what we planned for it to do, and we can do one instead of 3 different wells, and then we can change how much money we have to spend on the groundwater part of that, well, that's great, that's a win. But if we came to you and pushed that number up here, that wouldn't be responsible, because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. Our goal is to make sure that when we look at this every 5 years, that we're taking a sharp pencil and a calculator and saying, okay, is this really what we need? Did we evaluate some of these things and determine that maybe our needs aren't the same? Or in some cases, those needs are greater. And the good news is, with the support from Tim, Vaughn, and the city manager's office, and obviously Tia, finance, the people that are obviously trying to make those decisions with our eyes open, you can't just do it once. And yeah, there are some things, obviously, if changes happen, we have to evaluate it. You can't just sit there. That's part of what got us into trouble with the sewer moratorium, is that there were some decisions made that might have been forward-thinking 10, 15, 20 years ago, but they weren't necessarily looking at, well, what do we really need to do with respect to the comprehensive plan? For instance, planning documents like Matt Summers is responsible for managing. All of those things work together. So as long as we have support from the city manager and obviously the elected officials, this is our goal, is to make sure that this isn't a one and done, that we're looking at this on a regular basis.
The study that she's talking about is actually Oklahoma County, and they got into that jam because it had been 18 years since they had looked at it, and it's out in Deer Creek.
The report I was
Yeah, so I read it. In fact, I've got it right here on my phone. I saved it because they're talking about not preparing like we have been doing right now. And the last time they looked at this was in 2007. So they're behind the curve, and thank God that we aren't. So
Yeah, well, we hadn't done, unfortunately, as you know, we had not gotten a master plan for water or sewer or drainage and stormwater ever in the history of the city. So this is the first. Obviously, we're trying to make good decisions. Next job, the hard part, comes with the funding, making decisions during the budget process.
Well, there's another thing on the horizon that we also need to be watching, is not only in our community, but surrounding communities, is these data centers that are popping up. The
Oh, yeah.
resources that those require to keep their systems cool, not only water, but also electricity, could have a negative impact on us. So, you know, we don't have any land for it, but it could crop out somewhere else or near Norman, and which would directly affect our ability to get water out of Thunderbird. So that's another thing we need to
And
keep.
that was my second question, and you may not have an answer, which I understand. Do you know if there are any drilling, fracking oil sites near or around our water source that we need to actively monitor for potential hazards? Or is there a lot? I mean, you can't even count them, or?
I mean, if you're talking,
Two. That's why I was asking.
yeah, if you're talking about, the issue is a lot of these other issues are as the drilling process occurs, there's cementing processes that are currently required to protect those upper lying aquifers from what they're drilling into for the oil production. And there's been changes to that over the years since the historic days where that wasn't necessarily the standard case to today, where they are required to do more protection of those upper overlying zones. But yeah, there's a lot of oil wells. I mean, I think the OGS, the Oklahoma Geological Survey, OWRB, the Corporation Commission, they all have data on where those were historically, if they're inactive or active. Of course, there's environmental drillings around gas stations for underground storage tanks and those sorts of things. I mean, there's a lot of potential impacts to groundwater. They're just a lot harder to find and a lot usually, you know, there's so much natural filtration inside of the systems that are usually not as impactful as what we were seeing on the surface because it's so much quicker and so much more reactive. But yes, there are lots of threats to groundwater.
I have a thought. Is there any way that we could put this on a time schedule where we look at this like every 3 years, every 5 years, or something? I know there's programs out there that will generate this reminder that we need to look at this process, because I see it as a fluid thing. It's constantly moving. Things are going to change, and what may work in this year may not work 2 years from now. But if we put it on a scale, and you guys know from dealing with me, if we had something that would generate a review, we could look at it and say, oh, that's a good plan, we'll need to look at it. But we need to look at our plans instead of waiting till something happens.
Yeah.
Or,
We'll incorporate this plan into our capital improvement process,
Okay.
which is exhaustive. Carrie has really taken it to a new level, and finding money is always the question. But no, we're going to constantly be looking at this, and there'll be questions as we develop out east and other areas. There's going to be questions. They're going to be, you know, kind of our consulting engineer from pressing forward on water in this city.
now I'm not saying we need another audit at this point, but maybe in 3 years we could say we do need another
Yeah.
audit at that time. So that's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions, comments,
Now,
anything?
I make a motion.
Okay,
You
I've
accept
got a
the
motion to approve.
Motion to accept.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your
Thanks, Bryce.
presentation.
Appreciate
Sorry
it.
to put you on the spot like that.
We really need.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring forward the body for discussion? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Hospital Authority. We have 2 discussion items on this agenda. Mr. Lyons.
Discussion considerations, possible action to approve the meeting minutes for October 28th, 2025.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Motion carries. Item number 2, Mr. Lyons.
No action needed.
No action needed on item number 2. We now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Special Utilities Authority. We have two discussion items. Item number one, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the special meeting minutes for October 28th, 2025.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number two, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a resolution declaring the northernmost 180,000 square feet of Lot 4 of the Soldier Creek Industrial Park, in addition to the City of Midwest City, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, surplus, and approving a certain agreement for purchase and sale of the real estate by and between Midwest City Utilities Authority and Stingray Volleyball Academy LLC, authorizing, directing, execution, delivery of the real estate agreement and containing other provisions relating thereto. This is, as we have discussed in executive session, we're very excited about this. Mr.
Any
Coleman.
questions, Mr. Coleman?
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I think it would be, hold on, Robert, I do think it would be not serve justice. Robert has worked on this for about 10 years.
A long time.
And yeah, it's been a long time coming. And I know the rest of us appreciate all the effort that went into this, getting it done.
Not possible without water.
And Vice Mayor, and thank you for pointing that out, and I think that this is going to be such a huge addition to enhancing Ward 5, particularly around Northeast 23rd Street, so thank you so much.
In fact, we couldn't do this, we wouldn't have the fire suppression capabilities if we hadn't added that 23rd Street extension between Spencer and Douglas.
I would just say if you had worked more effectively or faster, we could have done this 5 years ago. So, you know,
Criticism acknowledged.
I'm so sorry.
You're out of order, Mr.
Thank you,
Thompson.
Robert, very much.
Okay, we approved that one. Now we move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned and we are done. Have a good night and happy